Sandra Lettingham is a ceramic artist who lives and works in Prince Albert. While she began her career by making functional objects thrown on a potter's wheel, she now constructs non-functional objects, which involve mold making and raku, an ancient Chinese firing process. Lettingham is particularly interested in surface and texture, and her highly stylized work is at the cutting edge of Saskatchewan craft.
I suppose I like clay because that is the medium that I've sort of grown up in. I like the malleability of clay and its facility with transition. It's a very immediate kind of material to work with. I'm not drawn to hard materials at all. I've worked a bit in wood and a bit with stone, and heaven forbid that I ever have to do that again. It's not my sensibility for certain. My initial interest in clay was to learn how to use the potter's wheel and throw functional pots, and that was the big lure. I wanted to make functional pots. So I came to clay that way, and it's become an old friend. I have been with it since 1972. The history of ceramics and the history of craft is probably the oldest of the arts in the history of mankind. The tradition of clay has such an ancient and varied kind of history, and I think it's always exciting to see it reflected in many different ways in many different societies. I think that travel is a really important element in terms of inspiring, in terms of bringing new energy to the work and new ideas. And if I could spend a good portion of my time traveling and living in other environments, that would be my definite choice. I find it very inspirational. I love designing. I love the idea of taking textures and colors and lines and concepts of composition and creating aesthetically pleasing objects. That's not the end product for me because I want the pieces to exude a certain kind of emotional impact. But I find myself working very consciously with the concept of contrasts. Within my work, you see hard edges and soft edges. You see the tension that is set up between those elements of something that's very organic and something that is very plastic looking. Working with any material, I think you have to experience its full limits. And it's very good, I think, to move around the extremes of a material and styles to finally become comfortable with the place you want to be with it. My work right now is so contrasty, it's incredible, because I have been working for several years in thin porcelain tall vessels that were hand-built from slabs. And now my work has moved into very thick, massive cast pieces. I've really enjoyed working that kind of extreme of process. The thin porcelain is an interesting process because of the sensitivity you have to constantly have with the material. But the form needs to go through a bit of a transition. So I found myself automatically moving to this very thick, kind of massive approach to the forms. And I think it's all very exciting to move around the parameters and eventually come back to a unity of styles. I love the conceptualizing. It's interesting, every piece probably that I have made in the last many years has started in a cafe someplace. I love the idea of going and sitting in sidewalk cafes and having a cup of coffee, and I always have pen and paper with me, and all of my ideas begin on paper. I love that separation of environment to begin an idea. I can never walk cold into the studio and begin to build a piece. I've been in the situation sometimes where I have very little time, and I always find I still have to at least take an hour or two and go someplace divorced from the studio environment to begin working on the object. I have always been intrigued by surfaces that I see around me. I've traveled to Mexico many times and visited the ruins there every time I go, and I find a certain wonderful sense of energy about old, ancient places that it comes to me in my work all the time. I grew up on a farm in rural Saskatchewan and left there when I was quite young, and I've revisited that place only a few times. And it's an incredible experience wandering around an old abandoned place where you have history and rediscovering walls and floors that you knew so well. And the same old wallpaper and linoleum still is on the floor, and I recognize paint splatters and greasy kids' finger marks and so on that I studied many times when I was there as a kid. And I always visit the old barn where the paint is peeling, and there's little marks of history that I've known living there. So that kind of surface comes back over and over again for me in my work. The work for me is involved with human emotions rather than story. And while I'm working on pieces, I feel certain emotional reactions to the work. I think we proceed in our work often not in a conscious way, that the decisions we make are very evolutionary. I think the porcelain pieces for me were very sensual, whereas the present coarse pieces have much more to do with contemplativeness and a certain intensity. I'm using the raku process simply because I'm interested in surface, and I'm interested in that kind of ancient, varied surface that you can achieve from raku. I also am very drawn to the kind of metallic antiquity you can collect from that kind of firing process. There's a very comfortable feeling to know that I'm working in a medium that is also used in so many different ways by so many cultures. It's marvelous to go into a museum and see an old functional pot, a pre-Columbian pot that has had many, many, many people and years of use. And I think it automatically takes the mind and the memory, and we sort of time travel with an object like that.
Mel Boland is a ceramic artist and a long-standing member of the Saskatchewan craft community. In the 70s, Boland left a teaching position and city life to start a rural pottery studio in the Humboldt area of Saskatchewan. With his mastery of the potter's wheel, Boland produces both finely crafted functional objects and large, ornately designed vessels in which he continues to explore his craft.
The first time I laid my hands on clay, it just pulled me right in. It was physical as well as creative, that I could actually get my hands on and sweat and physically move it around and have sort of an immediate response. Things would shape, turn into something. So that aspect of it was very attractive, plus being able to actually sell pieces. It's hard to sell a big sculpture. It's not too hard to sell a coffee mug. So it pays the bills. It's an easy, pleasurable way to make the bread and butter money. The process of throwing is a process of applying pressures to a lubricated surface, and it's not really a process of pulling the clay out. It's always extruded. You exert a force on the inside and the outside. So basically what you do is watch the inside curve. The inside curve is always the important curve. If the outside is tooled afterwards and you have the same thickness all the way through, the outside curve is exact duplicate of the inside. If you think about the difficulty of making anything that is round by hand, if you can envision making, a round marble bowl, I mean, how much work would that take to chip a round marble bowl or make it round anything? But on the wheel, it's so simple because the material that you're working with is in a semi-liquid state, very pliable, very malleable. The wheel spins, it does the work. All you do is you offer a fixed buttress to it. So when you consider the incredible ease with which something like that is made on a wheel in a very short time, and the end product that you have, it's quite an amazing process. It's that process that has kept me sitting at the wheel for close to 25 years now. The large pieces are made from two sections, mainly because I want to be able to make pots for another 25 years. You can actually physically wear yourself out just taking on too big a piece of clay to work on it. So what I do is I make it in two pieces. The pieces are put together in the leather hard stage, and they're brought back to a certain amount of plasticity with the addition of water, and different columns are added, and the pieces are continually thrown. So basically they are one piece, but just for ease of working with the pieces, they're made in a number of sections. Quite a simple, efficient way of making a large piece. I suppose the way to try to understand one of my pieces would be for me to tell you what attracts me about a piece as well. First of all, it would be the weight of a piece. You could pick it up, you could feel it. It has a certain weight to it, it has a certain presence, a certain density. There's the tactile surface of the actual exposed clay body on the bottom. There's the tactile surface of the glaze, whether it's shiny or matte. The piece also has a temperature. It's very cold, it's cool, it's warm. It can be very plain, it can be very complicated, it can be voluptuous, it can be sensuous, it can be plain, it can be drab, it can be very gutsy, or it can be very raw. I think you can see all those things in the pieces. I suppose a really important aspect of the creative process for me would be the very location that I'm living in here. I've been here for about 15 years now, and the evolution of this studio does relate to the progression of the pieces that I make and how I feel about those pieces. Originally, when myself and 3 other potters came out to this location, we were basically pioneers. We really roughed it for the first 3 years. During this whole time, during all the problems, just getting the living situation together, the main focus was still the idea that the reason we came out here was to make a pottery studio and to make pieces. And that did happen. A year after we got into this location, we had a kiln built, we were living here, and I had a one-man show at the old Shoestring Gallery in Saskatoon. So we were on the edge all the time, and that's pretty well the way the pieces were. As time goes on, and as this studio and the surroundings change, and we sort of meld into this environment more and more, I think you can trace a pattern in the pieces as well. The pieces have a little less tension to them. They're a little more mature. They're a little more grown in and protected than the pieces were. The glazing aspect of the work that I do is as important as any other facet of it. You can have a beautifully thrown piece that you're really excited about. You can put a glaze on it and decorate it, and it just falls flat. Rarely can you save a piece with poor form with a good glaze, but when you get the two working together, you begin to realize which of your throw-in pieces are the important pieces. When I'm getting ready to load a kiln, I usually work for a month, accumulate a lot of pieces, and then I sit down to decorate them. And I always warm up on the regular pieces. I'll do mugs and plates and casseroles, and I'll get everything moving, and then I'm going to save the best formed pieces until the day that I feel that I can do the best job on them. I'll take the best pieces and I'll give them the longest shot. I'll make the biggest stretches, the biggest leaps in those pieces. And if they do come through, they are a landmark and they are something else to work from. The objects that I make are personal because they are an extension of my experiences. Basically, what those pieces are saying is that I enjoy making the pieces. I enjoy living this kind of a life and being a potter. And I am very conscious and protective about the environment. If my pieces are going to say anything, I would think that they would say something about the fragility and the permanence of just this little globe of clay that we live on.